This video contains spoilers for the 4.0 Archon quests. One of the main themes in Fontaine is masking your true emotions and hiding your true self. It's brought up several times in the nation's story, from Lynette's voice lines to Nouvelette's strip marketing to Navia's father, Callus. Everywhere you look, the theme of hiding your true self and emotions exists. And, of course, since Childe is also present in the nation of Hydro, he fits into this theme as well. Now, on the surface, Childe appears to be a pretty cheerful guy. He usually has a very chipper tone and doesn't seem to be emotionally affected by much. He's just a guy that loves fighting, fishing, and his family. Paimon even comments on this in his first appearance in the Fontaine Archon quests. When Childe tells her and the Traveler that he's been in a bad mood, she responds with, "Since when have you ever felt down about anything?" Which doesn't make much sense, however, since being in a bad mood and feeling down have two very different connotations, so which one is it? But if you've learned more about his character, you'll know that isn't really the case. I mean, who falls into the literal abyss for 3 months as a kid and doesn't end up traumatized? And there are several signs that he has trauma from this event, including there not being any shine in his eyes, and his avoidance to talk about it with most people. Heck, even the fact that he cares so much about his younger siblings likely has something to do with his trauma and wanting to give them something he never got. Now, the part about him not talking about his time in the Abyss with anyone might not make much sense, since he outright told the Traveler what happened in the Fontaine Archon quests, but his character stories do explicitly say that he never told anyone about his time in the Abyss. This nonchalant attitude about telling the Traveler isn't all that out of the ordinary, though. If you pay attention to his voice lines, you'll find a strange pattern in the way Childe talks about things. He'll bring something up, but only tell half the truth. For example, he mentions how he joined the Fatui to fight stronger opponents, as if it was entirely of his own will, while in reality he was conscripted by his father. Also, in the voice line where he first mentioned the creature he saw in the Abyss, which is likely the it he awoke, he says how he once ventured deep into the Abyss, omitting the fact that he fell down there when he was 14. He does this in his appearance in Fontaine, too, where he told the Traveler that he fell into some unknown abyss, instead of the abyss with a capital A, even though his voice lines indicate that he knows he fell into the abyss. But that's a bit off topic. For this video, I wanted to talk about the different sides of Childe and how his names are used in-game. It's not hard to notice the different sides to himself that Childe has. He is, of course, very battle-hungry and loves fighting, but also cares very much for his family, and has hobbies such as fishing and cooking. He's a Fatui harbinger who is constantly trying to gain more power and get stronger, but at the same time, he's also kind of just a guy, and that's what makes him interesting. But this has all been talked to death, and I'm sure that anyone who likes Childe's character is aware of this already. What I want to talk about is how the game uses his 3 names, Childe, Tartaglia, and Ajax. A common conception within the fandom is that Childe represents his more friendly side, while Tartaglia is his more monstrous side, probably because the first time you see the name Tartaglia in-game outside of his existence as a playable character is when he first transforms into his foul legacy. However, I actually think it's the other way around. Childe is the name the game uses for him the most, especially in the dialogue box. As far as I'm aware, the only times the dialogue box actually refers to him as Tartaglia is in the Serenity Pod and during the 3.2 picture-taking event in Chinju Forest with Yoimiya. And I think this is because Childe is the name that represents his side as a harbinger. It is his codename after all. Every time the dialogue box calls him Childe, he is doing his job as a harbinger, whether it be in the Leo Archon quest where he's trying to get the Gnosis, in the Labyrinth Warriors event where he's looking for Scaramouche, or in his story quest in the Fontaine Archon quest where he's doing more minor duties such as debt collection. The only times where he's exclusively referred to as Tartaglia are when he is not doing his harbinger duties. In the Serenity Pot, he's just hanging out with the Traveler, and in the Chinju Forest, he was hanging out with Yoimiya and some Inazuman kids. Additionally, as a playable character, he is named Tartaglia, since he's going on adventures with the Traveler, while the entry in the archive for his foul legacy transformation is named Childe. And it's fitting, isn't it? Childe is just a codename, while Tartaglia is more of an actual name, even if it's not the one he was born with. But what I find most interesting is the use of his name Ajax, or rather the lack of use of it. You see, outside of Childe's character stories, he isn't called Ajax once, despite there being opportunities for that to happen, most notable of which is his story quest. I find it quite suspicious how throughout the entire quest, Tusser doesn't call Childe by name once, instead always referring to him as Big Brother. Of course, this might just be a cultural thing, but what does he do with both Ajax and Anton are around? They're both his big brothers, so how would he differentiate between the two? There's also Childe's letter to Tonya. He signs it as just "your loyal knight" instead of using his name, which raises the question, does he still go by Ajax around his family? What does the name Ajax mean to Childe? What side of his character is it supposed to represent? I think most people in the fandom would say that it represents his more human, family-oriented side, which would make sense. However, even in situations where he's focused more on his family, such as his story quest and the event in Chinju Forest, the game still refers to him as Tartaglia. You can make the argument that in Chinju Forest, the traveler simply didn't know that his name was Ajax, but it would have been very easy for Hoyoverse to slip it into his story quest. So why didn't they? I think Ajax is supposed to represent Childe before the Abyss, when he still had his childhood dreams and innocence. Perhaps he thinks that Ajax died down there, and that's why he doesn't use the name around his family anymore. Perhaps his parents also sensed that he wasn't the same as before, so they stopped using it too. It all seems very tragic, but Childe, being the crazy, chaotic mess of a character he is, seems to have pulled through it somehow. And it all goes back to the beginning, and the theme of hiding your true self. If Childe is going to fit into this theme somehow, and I'm confident he will, then who is his true self? If it's Ajax, then maybe it's been hidden away for years, likely due to trauma, and part of his upcoming story will be finding it again. Or maybe all the different sides, all the masks of himself have become muddled and fused together. Maybe even Childe isn't sure who the real him is anymore. That's pretty much all I have for this video. I just wanted to share my analysis of his character. I wasn't lying when I said he was my favorite, and how it could possibly relate to the story in Fontaine. I don't really know how else to end this video, so like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.